At 5.5 inverses of matrices, and we have 4 examples up here. The first thing you want to do is go ahead and put those 4 examples into your calculator, which I have already done. If you haven't done that, then go ahead and pause and put those in. And then we want to find the inverse of these 4 matrices. To find an inverse of matrix, the first thing we have to check is to make sure that it's a square matrix. If we look at A is not a square matrix, so we will not be able to find the inverse. If we try to on your calculator, you will get an error. So let me just show you that. So I pull up my matrix by hitting second matrix, and I push this key, which helps me find the inverse, if the inverse exists. When I hit enter, I get an error, which means, again, A does not have a inverse, and again, it's obvious because it's not a square matrix. Okay, let's go to B now. So let's find the inverse of B. B is a square matrix, so let's see if we could find its inverse using our calculator. So I first pull up my calculator. I push my X inverse key, and then there's the inverse of matrix B. Okay, let's go ahead and find the matrix, I'm sorry, the inverse of matrix C. C is a square matrix, so let's see if it does have an inverse. So I pull up my matrix, C, which I have in there already, and I push my X inverse key. There's my inverse. Normally, we want to have our answers instead of in decimal form because some decimals are repeating. We normally accept them better as fraction form. So I'm going to convert these all into fractions using my math fraction key. And there's my answer in fraction form. Okay, so that's the inverse of matrix C. Now let's look at matrix D. We want to find the inverse of this particular square matrix. Let's go ahead and try it. We will not be able to find one. I'll explain why in a minute here, but let's go ahead and find the inverse just to start off with on your calculator. Okay, so I pull up my matrix D, find the inverse, and I get an error. Okay, the reason why we get an error, let me just explain it real quickly here, is if you take a look at your matrix D, normally the way you find the inverse by hand is you write the matrix, excuse me, and the identity matrix to the right. This is how you would do it by hand. But if you look at our matrix, if I take my first row and I multiply by -2, and I add, and I look at that, the result is the same thing as row 3. So these two rows are actually the same. One is just a multiple of the other. So in that case, there's not an inverse for that matrix. Okay, so that concludes this part of the worksheet.